welcome back to another episode of the Trash Talk Podcast. Today, we're doing one of the fan favorites. We have put a lot of effort into this, and we're doing custom Hearthstone cards once again. Now, to really get the most out of this, we're going to kind of rely on the viewers to help us out with this, to rate the cards that we created in terms of both the flavor, as in the design, as well as how balanced they might be. Now, granted, we didn't really have the time to make perfectly balanced cards. I don't think that's the goal either. I think it's creativity, presenting maybe a new box, and basically just bring some flavor into it. But give us your opinion on what do you think, how balanced those cards would be, maybe if there's some concepts in there, sort of how much did you like it, and how much do you want to see this sort of stuff in the game. Now, of course, because it's corner, all of our cards we decided we're going to be Shadowlands themed. Shadowlands will be the new World of expansion, which is of course the game that Hearthstone is based upon, and that expansion currently already is live in the alpha to some exclusive people, and will drop fully soon this year. We're expecting the pre-patch to come out within the next few weeks or months, so should be an exciting time. If you haven't read up on Shadowlands or anything like that, you can definitely do that. It might be important to understand some of the cards because, of course, they are a Shadowlands Lore theme. So go ahead and do that if you don't know it. But we're going to hop into the cards. In the first topic, we're going to look at his cards. He made 5 of them. The second topic, we're going to look at mine. I also made 5. And that's what we're going to be debating. So if you want to start off, let's do it.
Let's start off. So this is not a card. This is just a picture I put here as a placeholder, so I can dramatically switch over to my first card.
The worst cinematic we've ever seen. Okay, earn your wings. Give a minion Wind Fury and Rush for power.
Yeah. So right. I decided for theme. We said Shadowlands, of course. Yeah. I figured we're doing 5 cards. There's 5 realms. I just kind of figured it would make sense.
Okay. So yeah. Doing the facts.
This is themed after the first realm you'll enter when you play the expansion, which is Bastion. The race there, whose name escapes me at the moment. There's 2 versions of them. There are the aspirants, which are souls that basically just came there and are like going through like their process thing, and then there's their final version, sort of, where they have their wings. So I figured it makes sense. A card that can give your minions wings. Now, how to represent wings? Well, Wind Fury makes sense.
Wind Fury.
I also liked Rush as a thing. This basically, the card, at the end of the day, is like a combination of Charge and Wind Fury. The cards, not the mechanics. But I think it makes a lot of sense for Paladin, because you put like Blessing of Kings on something, and you can maybe get a very OTK-ish sort of a buff deck thing going. I don't know.
Okay, so you're thinking mainly use the pure side of things.
Mainly, I like the flexibility, right? You're behind. Your opponent has multiple minions on the board. You play something like medium sized and put this on there and clear the board, or you use it to finish off your opponent with the Wind Fury side of things. Part of why it's relatively expensive compared to cards like Wind Fury, the Shaman spell, is because it's available to Paladin, which I think probably produces bigger minions, generally speaking, than a class like Shaman. And it, of course, the cost is a little bit offset again by the fact that it gives another keyword as well.
Alright, I feel like on first sight this could be 2 mana, because you compare it to something like the actual card Wind Fury, and then you look at, like you said, Charge, or maybe something like Rocket Boots in the same view, and it would seem like this should be a price 2 mana. Now, if it gave Charge and Wind Fury, I agree that it's a different situation. With Rush and Wind Fury, I feel like this might even be possible to do for 2 mana, because you also have to play the minion on the same turn to get maximum value out of the non-Rush minion. If you want to buff it up with Kings, and this, you only have 3 mana to even play a minion.
Yeah, I mean, again, part of the idea most certainly was that you play, say you have a minion, reasonably sized minion out already, and all of a sudden you play like 2 Blessings of Might and this, then all of a sudden for 5 mana you increase the damage by the base attack of the minion plus 12 of what you're dealing. Of course, that's a bit of an extreme scenario, but that is something. If you on turn 4 you play like a 4/5, like a Chillwind Yeti, and on 5 you play Double Blessing and this, you're dealing 20 damage on turn 5. Granted, very optimal scenario, of course, but I figured
Paladin does a lot more.
Yeah, I figured I'd just stay on the side of caution and just not go too crazy with this here.
You get that with Light's Champion. They can double the attack and then Wind Fury. Essentially double it up twice.
Yeah, Blessing of Champions. Yeah,
Blessing of Champions.
Yeah, that
sort of idea.
Yeah.
So you have. So let me guess. You have all 5 cards themed after each of the covenants, I suppose.
I mean, well, there is only 4 covenants. There is 5 realms.
Oh, the zones. The zones. Yeah.
I have the first 4 are more strictly themed after. There isn't that much we know about them all, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. And you'll see the last card kind of ties it together in a bit of a way. I don't want to give away too much, because coming up with these cards on a short notice, theming is one of the best things I've got going for me right now.
Yeah, that's true for sure. That's always the funnest.
I guess so. I was about to say we go to the next one. I am currently blanking on what the zone is called, but the Necrolords are the rulers of this zone. And what do? They make undead. What does this card do? It makes undead. It's a 5-mana 5/2, and whenever an enemy minion dies, summon a 2/2 ghoul.
Is it on Revan Breath? I'm not exactly sure which one it is anyway.
No, Revan Breath. Revan Breath is another one. That's the more gothic horror vampire inspired one.
That's the vampire one, right.
I believe if I didn't I didn't double check this, but I believe I put them in the order in which the zones are in terms of level.
Right.
So yeah, this.
I'm not exactly sure.
See, the thing is, I came up with this card. I had the idea like, oh yeah, I want something that summons undead because that goes with the zone.
Yeah, that goes with
and so the Necrolord, of course, made sense as the minion. I don't know if I didn't know which class I wanted to put this in, so I put it in neutral. I don't know if there's. I feel like this should be a class card, maybe, but I wouldn't know for which one. Maybe warrior, but that doesn't fit that well with theming.
If Death Knights were a thing, that's what it should be.
Yeah. So there was in Knights of the Frozen Throne, there was multiple cards that under varying conditions would summon 2/2 ghouls. And at first I was like, hey, maybe I'll make it summon an Abomination, right? Because those also show up in that zone, as you can see in the picture as well. But the problem is that Abomination inherently is very counterproductive in something that builds a board, because it's a board clear. So I decided to go with the ghouls that are pre-existing tokens. I did realize after I made this that it's kind of similar to Necrotic Geist, except that summons 2/2s when your minions die, not when your opponents die. I mean, there's another one. There's one that summons Leper Gnomes, actually, now that I think about it, when your opponent's minions die. But, so, I only balanced this by, like, what felt right. So I was like, I want this obviously it's a strong effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I want this to be understated. And I figured, with the whole necromancy angle, it's probably somewhat aggressive. So I went with basically vanilla attack stat and very low health.
So I think basically you play this, on average you kill one minion on the same turn, and you get this and a 2/2 for 7/4 in stats, which is about okay.
Yeah, so the idea
with some viral potential.
Yeah, so the idea is you can play this very well with single target removal. I'm not sure if there is any very great single target removal that's not damage based in the game right now, but of course, like in theory, you could play turn 10, you could play this and assassinate. It's a very underpowered play, but that's more at default for assassinate than Necrolord.
It's probably more you play this when it's on the board and then you take some trades.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking actually. Yeah, since it summons tokens, so it's a board-centric strategy like that you're playing in the optimal scenario, something like Token Druid, for example. And then, obviously, you have a wide board, presumably, and you can use the trades. I guess, in a way, this plays similarly to Necrotic Geist, except that you are more focused on killing your opponent's stuff, so your stuff doesn't necessarily have to die to make it happen.
That makes sense. So it will play quite similarly with the strategies in practice where you take traits and stuff. But yeah, I think fitting. So this is neutral. I guess it's not broken in any way that it can be abused by in class. Not that it's not that bouncing is the focus here, but yeah, definitely hits the play pretty well. I like actually what you did with the 5 different scenes. I didn't have that idea myself personally because I wanted to bring some more spice into it. But you'll get from what you've done so far, you've definitely got a lot more low key than I have in terms of extravagant.
I mean, yeah,
that's fine.
I didn't know that much about Shadowlands, so I did some research for this as well. And the moment I saw that there was exactly 5 zones, I knew there was multiple different ones. I didn't know exactly how many. The moment I saw 5, I was like, I mean, I kind of got it, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go with like, hey, let's use the fact that pretty much everyone who ever died is there to just like bring back popular characters because, So I figured I would try stuff that is more unique to the different zones, and yeah, that's what I ended up with. The next card brings us then to what is it? Ardenwald, I think, is what the zone's called.
This is
yeah, exactly. And so Druid made sense to me. The Winter Queen is the ruler of this realm, and it says in her description as well that because now there's less anima, which is like the soul energy in the different realms because of how the Maw is drawing souls in, that she has to decide basically which parts of her realm get the necessary energy to live, meaning that from what I understand it, she has the power to like keep the plants growing in her realm. So, what does she do in my version? She summons Treants. She's a 4-mana 4/5. Yeah, she's a 4-mana 4/5 Druid legendary. Battlecry, spend all your mana, summon that many 2/2 Treants.
That's all your mana aside from the one that obviously you spend on this.
Yes. So, we have precedent for this. Forbidden Ancient also is a minion with a Battlecry, spend all your mana. Of course, all the Forbidden cards follow this theme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted something that's flexible and summons trees.
Why not? So this is pretty good token, I guess. Like, I guess a bit of a catch-up card when you get like the higher the mana, the more value you get out of it, because essentially you're paying 1 mana per 2/2, which is very strong. That can fill up your board if you say like you played on turn 10. Which perfectly fills up your board.
That honestly, that was intentional. I was like, I want this to not be understated. I want it to be to vary in depending on where you play it. And I was like, I guess I'll make it 4 mana, so it perfectly fills the board on turn 10.
Definitely, it's essentially it's a 4-drop, but it's also drop on everything above that because it always efficiently spends all the mana that you have. Yeah. So I like that design actually. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now I'm not sure if Token Druid is not a very strong legendary, but it definitely does fit into it.
I'm not a side note as well a little bit. I'm not bouncing around any specific meta, generally speaking. I'm just kind of making cards that in a vacuum sort of would be hopefully balanced. I didn't spend a lot of time with balancing because, as you said, as we kind of touched upon, we made these on a somewhat short notice, but I
feel like this could be maybe a 4/4 just as a slight change. Because otherwise you just have Tailwind Yeti power creep, and it's there's absolutely no downside to playing it on 4, though you want that too. I feel like realistically, because we're pretty, would probably end up being.
Yeah, I was considering that it's a legendary, so if it was weaker than Tailwind Yeti or comparable, that would be kind of disappointing. And so that was a consideration. I specifically made it a legendary because A, it's an individual character, and B, it's supposed to be powerful. Also, on another note, it kind of balances very nicely with, as you said, Tailwind Yeti, and then 3 Enforcements, which is 1 mana, and then one of the effects is summon a 2/3, and so this kind of does it both. Of course, you have to spend less cards to do it, but yeah, It's just what I thought. And then, of course, you mentioned it earlier, the fourth zone you hit when the one where it's supposed to reach max level is Revendreth.
It's a cool zone.
Yeah, it is a very cool zone in design-wise. I don't know how it plays. I also not a huge WoW
By the
player.
way, I think the zone name of the other zone was Ouroboros. We looked at.
No, that is the thing in the center that distributes the souls. But so this is a creature that is called a Biggin. They are created by reshaping the dredgers, which are creatures in that zone, and just combining some dredgers into a basically gigantic dredger. So obviously it's a giant. What do giants do? They're 8/8s whose cost get reduced by a condition. So since this is the afterlife and everything is kind of like powered by souls, I figured, stuff dying makes sense as a condition. This was one of the tougher ones to balance because it's hard, I feel like, to perfectly discern how much you want. So I haven't read the card. It's 20 mana, 8/8, costs 1 less for each minion that died this game. Note, it doesn't specifically say friendly or enemy, so you could use this. Yeah, so that's why I at first had it at 25. I figured that might be a little slow. So if you're playing an aggro deck, board centric, you're trading a lot. This comes out relatively quick. If you're playing control and you're removing a lot of boards, you could still at some point pull this off as maybe a swing. That's kind of the idea behind this.
I think 20 probably are right. This is something that's really tough to gauge without it actually being play tested in practice. Because then it's of course the question if you like an active matchup, this might be out on like turn 3, 4. But then again, Mountain Giants used to be out on turn 4, so it's probably not going to be any worse than that. So I think 20 makes sense. You don't want to put it too high.
I prefer comparing this to Sea Giant for the very simple fact that if you get a Mountain Giant out on 4, that means you pretty much didn't play anything before then.
Yeah.
Which is problematic, of course, because if you want to evaluate this card, I would assume that you'd have to... the optimal scenario for this would probably be an aggro deck. So aggro decks play Sea Giants early, but aggro decks never get to play Mountain Giants early because they never get the hands to do it.
Yeah, they don't run Mountain Giants.
So that's why I think that Sea Giant is probably the better comparison for balance. Not saying that, of course, it should be the mana cost of Sea Giant because that's ludicrous.
Yeah, no, it's just basically I was just making the basic point that a giant on 4 is not the worst thing we've ever seen that happened. So if that with this, it's not.
But my point was that you've seen a giant on 4, but you haven't seen a giant with a full board as well on 4, right? You could play something on 1, 2, and 3, and then play the giant on 4. Yeah. Although I guess stuff would have had to die, so you would...
you need to trade them all.
That's...
That makes sense. Is there no giant in the game that profits off of minions dying?
No. Not literally. There is Mulch Muncher, and there is a Corridor Creeper, which is not even giant stats. I actually looked at it. I looked at all the giants that are currently in the game as partly to figure out how I wanted to balance this, and partly to actually see if there was anything like this, and of course to see the exact formatting of the card text, because I was trying to get all of these to look realistic.
Make them look.
Well, they don't look realistic because most of the art is actually renders of the in-game models, so it doesn't look anything like it would look on Hearthstone card art. But I just had to use what I got for the most part.
By the way, it's Molten. Took me a while.
Sorry, I didn't get that. What did you say?
The other zone is Maldraxxus.
Oh, Maldraxxus. Yes, exactly. That's what it was.
So that's what it is. Yeah, just still remember it because I haven't gotten to play the alpha. So
I believe the alpha also. I'm not exactly sure, but from what I've heard, I've only seen people talk about Bastion and Revendreth in the alpha. I'm not sure if the other zones are.
Yeah, there's zones. I mean, there's like explorers who can get there, but they're not finished at all. I mean, you can't really get everywhere. They know the map and everything, but it's very limited still. So not at the moment.
But I guess speaking of the 5 zones and the whole theme that I was going for, the last card is not directly a denizen of one of the zones, but it relates to the theme of the expansion and even to the last zone, the mall.
Okay.
We have Sylvanas, Banshee Queen.
Okay.
I mean, she is like the linchpin of the entire expansion. I figured it made sense to make a card for her. This one was really hard to balance.
She'll be a red spot.
Yeah. This is, of course, the way I made it is unprecedented. It's this one is an 8-mana 5/5 with Rush and Immune. There has never been a... what do you say?
Perpetually immune.
Yes. This is the only card in... Well, if this were a card in Hearthstone, it would be the only one that just has the keyword immune. You get, like, your hero is immune, or immune for a turn, or something like that. Which, of course, makes this incredibly hard to balance.
Makes it very hard, because you can't gauge it against other stuff and see how much mana immunity is actually worth. That's true.
Yeah.
Now, making this neutral is, of course, a risky decision, especially when...
Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, a control tool at the end of the day. It's not particularly strong otherwise. So that generally reduces certain worries about the thing. I guess you could buff it, which is the problem. She's neutral because A, she's, of course, one of the key characters in this whole thing. So it would be kind of weird if you had, like, the main character be a class card. Then again, in Rise of Shadows, arguably Rafam would have been, like, the main character.
Yeah.
And you still had him as a class card, so it's not exactly unheard of. Also, of course, this shares a lot of similarities with the original Sylvanas. Well, I guess the fact that it is a neutral legendary and the fact that it's a 5/5.
Just an immune. I can't really judge this. I feel like this would somehow be broken, balance-wise. Flavor-wise, of course, it fits because she's going to be a important character in the expansion. We don't know to exactly what degree, but we definitely know that she's empowered by the Jailer Force, and will be important, and also open up the Shadowlands essentially by destroying the Helm of Domination. So she'll be involved and likely be a raid boss later down the line. Flavor-wise, all those cards are great, especially this one, of course, makes a lot of sense lore-wise. The new one is a risky one, but of course, like in custom creation, I feel like that's kind of what you want, right? You want to get these the creativity on.
I didn't just want to go like this thing, but slightly different. I mean, a lot of my cards were that to some degree. In some cases, I only realized how very close some of them were later. But I figured, I had the theme going on with the zones. And yeah, for Sylvanas, she's literally unkillable at this point. Well, kind of. So immune made sense. Rush is in part to actually make sure that even if your opponent finds a way to like silence and remove her or something, that you can still actually get at least one attack in, and also it kind of fits.
Unkillable is a bit of an exaggeration. I mean, who really tried like so far? Also, she got killed like 3 times already. Like in her life.
Well, yes, but that's also part of why this works. And of course, you could also go. One of the things I was previously thinking was the old Death Rattle Resummon this route, where she gets killed and brought back by the Lich King. She dies and she gets brought back by Valkyrie. She dies. She makes a deal with the Jailer. Blah blah blah. I think the Valkyrie and the Jailer thing relate somehow, but yeah.
That definitely does make sense. There is a lot of, by the way, we should maybe talk about this. Actually, we can do this later after my cards, because the speculation of how the Shadowlands thing actually came to be and how, like, story-wise, we tie it into From Battle for Azeroth into Shadowlands, because there's several theories. But let's maybe talk about that later. So let us know what you think about JJ's cards, comments, or in our Discord server directly. Link in the description, of course. We will post them in there also after this podcast up. And you can just give us some ratings in there. My cards are coming up in the second topic. I also have 5. So far, I like these. I honestly, those were better than I expected. I came in here thinking I'm going to bring my cards. I'm going to destroy this guy. I'm going to blow JJ out of the water because my cards are they're great. And they're like, wow, I'm gonna put so much like story and lore in there, and it's so much flavor. It's going to be awesome. But those were actually pretty good. I do like that. A bit more low key, with the exception for the last card that I went maybe, but that's not a bad thing at all. Like, how about we get into the fact of the week first, though, and
let's do that.
What's your fact of this week?
My fact of the week is one that it's just one of those things that I kind of stumbled upon. I thought it was very interesting, and that is, how old do you think people can get?
Like, wasn't the oldest person like in her mid 120s to ever live or something?
Yes.
How old can they like theoretically get?
I mean, to be fair, this was kind of what I was getting at, right? The longest documented human life was what?
There was this French lady who was
yes, exactly. Her name is I should have probably looked up how to pronounce this. I almost want to say Jeanne, but that's probably not it. Jeanne Louise Calment, who was born February 21st, 1875, and she died August 4th, 1997, making her 122 years and 164 days old. Which is to say...
75.
Which is to say pretty close to 122 and a half years.
That's crazy. I like to put it in historical perspective oftentimes, which is that's kind of the most interesting way to do it, usually I find. There was this one guy who made an appearance on national television in like the 50s or 60s or something, and basically he talked about how he was present for the assassination of Lincoln as a kid, as a youth, and basically in one lifetime he witnessed both that, like the Civil War, and the invention of broadcast television.
Yeah, I mean, this woman...
That's the best way to put it.
When she was a child, Vincent van Gogh moved to her hometown, and she met him, and then when they celebrated 100 years after he moved there, she actually recounted the story of meeting him, so that's that.
Still there. That's crazy.
Yeah, but what I thought was more interesting than the fact that she was 122 and a half, almost, years old by the time that she died, is she was the oldest living person from January 11th, 1988 to her death in 1997. That is over 9 years, as a matter of fact, over 9.5, since it's from January to August, that she was the currently oldest living person at that time.
That's crazy.
Which is, I was about to say, you would think that it's a record that generally, I don't know what the actual stats are, but you would think that generally
weeks, months, maybe.
would move a lot, right? Because it's like, the oldest person is generally, would assume, relatively close to dying. And then the runner-up, of course, becomes the next oldest person, unless they die before then. So the fact that she was the oldest living person for almost 10 years is crazy. She also got the record for longest documented lifespan, which is the whole thing why we talked about this.
Yeah.
In the first place, she got that record on May 12th, 1990, which is still over 7 years before her death. So she wasn't
at that point she was already the oldest person of all time?
Well, yes, the oldest documented confirmable one, but yes.
Likely.
Yeah, she was, for 7 years, she was the oldest person ever while she was alive, and of course, the 23 years since, she still is the oldest living person ever. She's just not alive anymore.
That's crazy.
She got the record of oldest living person ever 7 years before she died.
That is really crazy. Has there been anyone else ever since who gotten closer than 7 years? Have you checked that?
I mean, the records generally, there is a couple that are like 116. I think there was 119. There's a couple of 115s. Like, 113 is by no means the oldest that a person's ever lived. But still, I think it's still crazy that she held that record so early before her death. I mean, I can look up the exact list if you want to, but there is definitely... there's definitely a couple of people that have surpassed the age that she was at the time where she became the oldest living documented person. Yet, that's still crazy. I mean, I believe the oldest living person right now is 116 and something. So, that would be older than she was when she got that record, but still.
Yeah. Damn, that's a hell of a push.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see what the limits are, though. Like, because chances are we'll find out, like, in our lifetimes, right?
I mean...
Because people tend to get older.
It depends on what you consider a human life and what kind of limits we're talking about, right? If we get to
let's just say the way that we say right now, we're not talking about brain being cryogenically frozen and stuff like that. Just say, like, unassisted continuous life.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question, because obviously, I think at the point where we start breaking those sorts of records again, we might also get into the territory where we start digitizing human minds and stuff, and at that point, there really is no hard limit.
I'd say biological limit. I'm fairly sure that there's people living right now that will be older than her.
I mean, yeah, that's very possible. Though she is a bit of an outlier, of course, because I think the next oldest person was like 119 or something. So there's still a couple of years difference there. But
that is great.
The other thing also is if we can get to a point where we can rejuvenate cells, right? Do we run into other limits? For example, does the human brain just have a limited capacity for stuff? And would that be solved by forgetting other stuff? Or would that be at some point the brain's just like, no?
Just shuts down. I don't know. Maybe you'd have to like reboot it at some points just to hook it up to a computer and just get some of the old information out. I hope it's interesting. Dude, that's a very interesting topic for creative writing. How about this? Let me just pitch this for 2 minutes, because maybe you can write a book about this or something. So humanity finds a way to stay biological, to keep their body essentially running eternally, like perpetually. But it turns out that like after 150 years or so, the brain runs into a hard limit. And so a procedure that needs to happen is that basically every 50 years or so, you get an operation where they shave off the oldest 50 years from your memory completely. And you're 150, you get your first operation, and you can only remember anything from your life starting from your 50th year.
Huh. That's an interesting idea. The question would then be, does that just contain to like direct memories? Does it contain like factual stuff you learned in that time? And if so, oh boy.
I guess, yeah.
Because you could definitely go some interesting ways with that.
Because then you'd have to go back to school again, all that jazz. But you could just go memories. Why not just memories? Like your first memory at that point is you being 50.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would not be the worst idea. The problem is it's not that special of an idea, right? Because you do forget things as a regular human as well.
Yeah, but not everything from a time period. So it's like once you've had this operation 3 times, you've basically forgotten your entire first life.
Yeah, that's I guess that is definitely a possible premise. You would have to, of course, have a story around that. I mean, that's more of a setting the detail rather than a story. But yeah.
If there are any authors watching this, use this as an idea. Here's my fact of the week. And this also puts something into historical context, still enough. A bit more recent everything, but nonetheless quite interesting. You might have heard of certain people by the name of Aaron Rodgers and Frank Gore.
Yes.
NFL stars that are still active in the league and still at the top of that game. And both of these players were drafted into the NFL on the exact same day that the first ever YouTube video was uploaded, which is April 23rd, 2005. There we go. Aaron Rodgers and Frank Gore's NFL career is as long as the entirety of YouTube.
A day at the zoo.
Mm-hmm. The day at the zoo. And actually, like, the guy had the nerve to add something like 10 million likes for part 2 of something, and that's still there.
I mean, the original video, the original upload doesn't exist anymore. I know that much. The re-uploads of the video do exist.
Oh, yeah, maybe. That might be. So, yeah, that's that. They've been in the league for that long.
That, dude, when it comes to, like, internet and technology stuff, that's always perspective you can do, of course, because a lot of this sort of stuff has happened very recently.
And then think of like Tom Brady and like Adam Vinatieri, who have been in the league for like 5 years more than that.
Oh boy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever Tom Brady did his combine, there was no YouTube to upload it to.
Yeah, I mean that reminds me of the one time when you watched that video of like what was it, like the 10 fastest and slowest 40-yard dash times.
Yeah.
And like one of in the top 10 slowest was Tom Brady, and like every single video looked the same except Brady's, because like the whole way they filmed it and even like some of the setup around it was just different because it was so old.
It's like another generation. That's true. Man, if he was being drafted around the time of the internet, he would not have been drafted, because he was such an average dude. Like, he was the least athlete of all time during his combine. That's crazy. But if the internet had graduated, they would probably not have gotten drafted. But yeah, that's our facts of the week. How about let's hop into the halftime show, and we got a streak to take care of. We got a streak that needs to persist. What is today's crossword word? Hopefully
last time we did Christmas groups, which means this one is David Bowie songs.
David Bowie songs.
We talked about it last time.
Oh yeah, we talked about this, right? I said how you needed to carry this because I know like 2 of them.
So let's start the quiz.
The purple one's gonna be Bowie songs.
I guess, yeah. Not near is far.
At least it's not a lot.
Hospital section.
ICU.
Hospital. Yes. Light brown. Is it tan? Yeah. Okay. Blank oddity is space.
Is that a Bowie song?
Yes, Space Oddity is a Bowie song. Japanese World War II leader.
Hito, but
what is Hito?
Oh no, his name was Hirohito, but that's like a million letters.
I don't know, man.
Was the emperor.
Ancient theater.
Like the Odea?
What?
Odea. ODEA.
Yes. Vegetables in a pod are peas.
Peas.
African river is wait, is it the Nile?
No, Nile makes sense.
Let's do some of the down ones. How about it? Kansas capital.
JJ?
I don't know, man.
Disappointment. Topeka.
Topeka? You said?
With a king.
Wow.
You need to know that.
Poem of praise is an ode. The blank genie. I actually don't know that, but I guess mean? No. What is it? What could EEAN? What else could it be? Lean? That's weird. I don't know. Desert Sanctuary is an oasis, like the band. Japanese World War II leader, I guess, is what is it? Tojo. Gene Genie. The Gene Genie is a song by Bowie, apparently. I did not know that.
Shit.
Ocean floor. Is it? What? No, right? No. What is it? Ocean floor. I don't know. Roman fountain.
What's it? Trevi, right? Trebi.
Yes. What is the Bowie song? Blank dance. Let's dance. Well, blanks dance, but yeah, it's let's dance. Point A to point B. Chemical suffix. Well, there's not that many of those. Is it ite? No. Is it eight?
With D?
Is it ide? The problem is there's so many. It's ide with a D. Yeah. The Sunshine State abbreviation. Oh, which one is that again?
Florida.
And how do you abbreviate that?
FLA.
FLA. I generally know states as being abbreviated by 2 letters. Snake-like fish is probably an eel. Which means that blank on 59 across. What?
59 across, that's a hint. What's 59 across?
8 across on blank. Oh, it's actually right. It's live on Mars, isn't it? It's live on Mars.
That's a good one.
Point A to point. Oh wait. Still is idle.
Could be linear. The point A would be is linear.
Okay. Like actress portray. I don't know. Wait. The E was already there. Ocean floor is C what?
Stupid.
Bed, right. That does make a lot of sense. Confuses. Not odd is even. That's not an N, though. Bell sound is a ding, I suppose.
Ding.
Cyst. Blank in the street with Mick Jagger is dancing. Army leader abbreviation. Is it general? No, is it admiral?
It's GENL.
GENL. Okay, that's even weirder. What is confuses? It's not befuddles. That much is certain. Blank pressure with queen is under. So yes, that does count. And I suppose historic period is era. Yeah. Tear is rip. And
just in the back, you could do the whole thing, Bart.
French pronoun is les, I suppose. No, it's not. Wait, what? Oh, it's de. Fair enough.
Could be say. Could be les.
Wait. Oh no, wait. Wait, no. Those are articles. Pronouns. Is
say.
What? Say? That doesn't make sense.
Oh, with an S.
Oh, so yeah, right. Confuses, bewilders. That's what it is. And then what was that? Cyst is a when, apparently. I don't know. Cleaning cloth is a rag. We had that question before, for sure. Conclude is end. Omelette ingredient is probably egg. That's the most popular one.
You would know that.
Garden tool is a rake. Blank daydream is moon age.
I'm just hanging.
Simpsons store owner is a boo. Wait, is it? Oh, it's a poo. Is that what it is? Yeah. 2 hours till noon is what? 2 hours till noon is 10 o'clock. What? It's 10 a.m. Make lovable. I don't know that, but I do probably know some of these. Friend is mate. Not close.
In Australia.
Not sit still. 2 words is run around. Make lovable and I don't even know. Greek wind god. Is it? No. Wait, I don't know. Star man. What? Oh,
Alos, like Alos.
Los.
So I'm gonna just spell it. I can't pronounce the stuff. AEOLUS.
Oh, that makes sense, I suppose. Duck's beak. Is it a bill? Was that what it was? Bill. Yeah, that was. Pakistani language.
Urdu.
Oh, that's what it is. I did not know that necessarily. Addiction treatment. Oh, and deer is the word up there. It's
rehab, huh?
Yeah, now that I had the first letter, it was easy.
Yeah.
Not how to spell llama or Lloyd, 2 words, 1 L. Modern love, of course.
That was good.
Always poetically.
Easy. We got this.
I don't actually remember that. Brain cell is a neuron.
It's air.
Weed whacker. What is air? Fair enough.
Yes.
So let's see. What did we have? We had the Gene Genie. I've never heard of. Space Oddity. I have. I wasn't a big fan. Let's Dance. I like. Life on Mars. I have heard of the title. I'm not sure if I've ever heard the song. Starman, I like. Dancing in the Streets, I have heard before. I guess I didn't like it, though, because I never added it. Under Pressure, I like. And Modern Love, I also like. So that's the takeaway about
Starman is the best one for sure. And then Under Pressure is also fine. That's what I know.
So yeah,
it's good to have a JJ around. Whenever.
Yeah, no, I mean, it took me a second to realize that by... first of all, what they meant with... blank on 59 across.
Yeah.
But once I realized it's blank on blank, and it was 4-letter words, I was like, oh, it's Life on Mars. I remember. That's the thing.
Exactly.
I mean, no, I know that there is a Bowie song called Life on Mars. I wouldn't...
Yeah.
I knew that. I mean, it does also make sense, yes.
In this quiz, I actually got to sit down and just get some rest. I'll be back. What's next week anyway? Maybe can I score next week again? Do we have something?
Next week is 4-letter countries, so that's probably more you than me.
That's probably that geography. I got you back next week. This week was you, and next week is gonna be me. We got this. The streak keeps growing. We should be close to 10. I think we got this crossword thing figured out.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, some questions start repeating, which at some point you know those. And also, I definitely know that I'm getting better at, like, understanding what they want from me, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole plural thing, which fucked me up real bad in the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning. Yeah, you get to it, though, after a while, just understand what they're
And also, I think I'm getting better at the whole synonym thing. When they're asking for synonyms...
Because, I mean, your vocabulary just gets better from this.
No, I don't think that's what it is, though. I think it's just that normally my brain kind of goes, you know the word, you just read it. Why do you need another word? And I think I've kind of rewired a little bit to the point where my brain is now more easily able to come up with synonyms when needed.
Flexibility.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that takes us to the second topic.
How about some cards? How about the best cards? How about the real stuff?
Okay, so once again, this is
I sent you this bundle, right? So there's 5 folders. Just don't make a mistake. There's 5 folders. Each folder is dedicated to 1 card. The items in those folders are numbered. They're in order. You just need to open them in order as they are for the main card and potentially tokens. That's all.
Yeah, no, I've opened them all already.
Okay.
They're all in here. And the first one is Enter Torghast. Oh, that's the Tower of the Damned, I suppose, right? It does definitely have the picture from the Tower of the Damned article as well. 2-mana warrior spell. Replace your deck with copies of Discover a Shadowlands card. So that's Explore Ungoro, basically.
It's Explore Ungoro in absolutely every single way whatsoever. Other than that, the fact that for Explore Ungoro, it stated copies of Discover a card, because at that point Discover was for several expansions, but assuming we had a Shadowlands expansion in Hearthstone, this would all be discovering Shadowlands.
So I suppose that the next thing is the token that belongs to that, right? You had 2 in that folder, I believe. Yeah.
Which is also the exact same in every way. And by the way, I used the picture that you had as your background.
That's the Bastion. Yeah. I decided between this. Sorry, yeah. What were we saying?
I thought it was cool. Keep going.
Yeah, I decided between this and the one with the big angel statues. Well, they're not angels, they're whatever. But I just ended up with that one for the background picture. Yeah. So I guess the difference between this and Explore Goro is that the Discover card specifically discovers Shadowlands cards, so it's a bit of so it's a smaller set, which generally for those sort of effects makes it less random, and the more predictable the better. And since it's expansion cards, I would assume that their power level is slightly higher than if it also includes classic cards, because you're not going to discover a Chill with Yeti out of this.
Or Chill with Yeti is strong.
I was about to say, actually,
you might discover a winner.
You're not going to discover say like a Goldshire Footman or the Beast or anything silly like that. So I think
Winter Queen, and that's a better Chill with Yeti.
Yeah. Now, granted, there's no Shadowlands expansion, so it's hard to guess how strong the average will be. But assuming that Shadowlands is about as strong as like Ashes of Outland, Saviors of Uldum, Rise of Shadows, something like that. They're definitely going to be better than the average Discover pool, I would argue.
Of course, it's not going to be a competitive deck. Neither was Explore.
Yeah. By the way, you're not going to get a Winter Queen if we are going off of that, assuming that you're referring to the card that I made. Yeah. Because the card I made is a Druid card, and this is a Warrior card. So Discover only discovers from your class or neutral, unless otherwise specified.
It was a class card, right? You don't get
unless you somehow get this in Druid, or you become a Druid because you played like Malfurion the Pestilent or something silly like that.
I guess. So entry Torghast, because Torghast is like a sort of the central part of all of the Shadowlands where all the souls are kept and everything. So I feel like that's like the big thing to explore, and it's also the big dungeon progression thing in WoW that's available on the alpha. And it's going to be sort of an added, almost an extra game mode in WoW besides mythics and raiding at the end of it.
It's the roguelike tower, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You get like the 72 floors, and you get the anima builds, and you get buffs along the way. And yeah, it's like when the jailer keeps all the souls that he's got in prison, basically. So that's what that is. And I just wanted to start off just like an easy one, get the introduction to the expansion. And I felt like, why not do Exploring again? It was where at that point I felt like it was nice to just give it a shout out, because it wasn't very good. Of course, this wouldn't be good in a competitive way, but it might be interesting. Like someone say they didn't have a deck at all, didn't have Whizbang or anything. You just play this and just get to discover some Shadowlands to learn at least as a complete.
There was one primary reason to play Explore on Goro, and that was Togwaggle.
It kind of was, yeah.
Explore Goro, Togwaggle, and then you play Geist next turn. That's how it was, right?
You win.
Yeah.
Then you win. Yeah, you change back, and then you Geist. You score the Geist. That's right. Exactly. Now let's go to the next card. I think those are probably.
Yeah. We've got the Jailer. I assume there is literally no better picture than this, huh?
No.
7 mana, 8/9. Choose a minion. It goes dormant for the rest of the game. Sorry, Battlecry, of course. It's a legendary neutral card. So, obvious comparison is of course Maiev, except that this never comes back, so it's a lot stronger. It's better than killing a minion because A, you don't trigger death rattles, and B, you're taking up a board slot.
Thanks for that. Exactly.
Which brings up the point that this is also overstated. What happened?
It's a legend. It's the Jailer of the Damned. The Jailer he's arguably stronger than even the Lich King. Like, he made the Lich King. Like, he's one of the most powerful beings in the Shadowlands. Should be pretty strong.
I get that, but I think that they would never print a card like this. I mean, maybe as a 10 mana 8/9, maybe, but I don't think you're gonna.
I mean, okay, like look at Natalie Celine, right? Like you destroy a move, gain its health. It's not that, but not that big of a difference. Like this is slightly overpowered, slightly overstated, and like a legend with just as a battlecry 7-cost legend, no less, it destroys one minion, isn't the end of the world. Or all it puts it to dormancy. I don't think it's terribly powered.
I would argue that as long as there's no other way to interact with dormant minions, this is stronger than the destroy effect, and you're oversetting the minion. I think that's a little much.
Yeah, I mean, you could make it like an 8 or 7/8. That's also possible.
Also, I would specifically call out that you called the Winter Queen card I made a little stronger than what they would print, and that one just does stuff that's actually kind of appropriate for the mana that you're paying for it, though on the stronger end.
Well, yeah, with the higher one, right? But you've had again. I like to give Natalie Celine as the comparison because it's also legendary. It's 8 cost, and it destroys a minion completely and it gains its health. So it's oftentimes an overstated minion, like whenever you actually add the health to it. With the destroy effect. Now this is slightly better, I would think, and with it being neutral, of course, this would be a very strong legend. But yeah, if it's like too overstated, like broken in practice, of course you could just take down a little bit, just put the stats down slightly. I just really like the effect of permanent dormancy because that seems like a jailer type of thing to do.
Yeah, that sounds very thematically fitting for sure. Do you want to go to the next card, or do you have something more?
There's also in the picture. There's also Sylvanas in there. You can barely tell, but it's from the cinematic where she shows up at the jail.
Oh right, yeah.
It's like that one.
So I guess we're gonna go to the next one, which is Echoes of Nyalotha. 0 mana legendary warlock spell. Add tier 1 corruption to your hand. Oh, was that from the folder with like 5 images in it?
Correct. Now, this one, I have to say a couple of things too. This is also, first of all, not technically Shadowlands themed because this is obviously the last patch in BFA. But since the Echoes of Nyalotha are a currency in World of Warcraft that you earn from all the 8.3 stuff, and that carries on, you can still get stuff for that now. And it's sort of like the remnants of the raid. I feel like it makes sense. And tied into one of the theories that we wanted to maybe talk about with the Shadowlands thing is that the whole Nyalotha N'Zoth thing was all basically illusionary, and actually the world was destroyed and you never defeated N'Zoth because of the whole insanity theme. It was all in your mind. Now the corruption's also based literally one for one on the corruption system in World of Warcraft, where you get basically 5 stages of corruption depending on how corrupted your gear is. And you can just, if you want to, you could just go through it. I put it like a 0 mana.
I was about to say we should probably look at this, yeah.
So the entirety of the corruption, let me just say that, the entirety for corruption in the game is that you get a positive effect, but you also get a negative effect. So you kind of have to gauge and make a decision of how deep you kind of want to.
Yeah. Of course, the 0 mana card that replaces itself with this, technically, first of all, besides the fact that there is, of course, stuff like Counterspell and Vargoth, there is no reason to have the first spell, because it's free, so you might as well just start off with the Grasping Tendrils. I get why thematically you wanted it that way, and again, there is some niche interactions that make a difference. Just a thought. Then there is, of course, as you said, the first token is Grasping Tendrils. 1 mana, draw a card, you have 60 seconds per turn for the rest of the game, add tier 2 corruption to your hand. The downside is very minimal. You're going from a 90-second turn to a 60-second turn, it's not dramatic. Honestly, I like that sort of a card being in the meta, because that at least makes your matchups a little faster sometimes, against certain opponents.
And the upside is also that great for it, right? It's a small trade-off.
Yeah, I was about to say, 1 mana draw card is definitely on the weaker side of things. I mean, comparison, Crimson Sigil Runner is a 1/1 that conditionally draws a card, and then you've got a lot of, like, 2-mana cards that have a weak effect with a draw a card tagged on there. So 1-mana draw a card seems about right. You wouldn't want to play something that just does that, but you get the tier 2 corruption.
Yeah.
Which is the Eye of Corruption. 2-mana, draw 2 cards. You have 45 seconds per turn for their... I see where this is going.
It's not going there all the way, but yeah, you make more and more sacrifices as you gain the corrupted power.
So, you draw 2 cards for 2 mana, which is, I guess, stronger than Arcane Intellect, so there's that. I think there's other stuff that is more directly comparable almost, so it is a decently strong effect, 45 seconds per turn. It gets tighter. 3 mana, draw 3 cards. I mean, this is just straight up better than Arcane Intellect. Also, you still get another card out of it as a generated card, so that makes it even better. You have 30 seconds per turn. That, you gotta go fast.
Go tight.
Cascading Disaster. At the start of each turn, reduce the cost of 3 cards in your hand by 1. And discard a random card. Okay, now we're breaking from the pattern. Cards get cheaper, but you're also losing cards. If there is a lot of discard synergy in the game, which currently there is not, there is maybe some ways to abuse this, but otherwise it's just kind of like I suppose a weaker Thorson effect, but not removable, with an additional downside.
And it takes at the start of every turn, but then again you discard every turn.
Yeah, but also on a balancing note, of course, this might seem very strong until you realize that you have to, of course, also sink 10 mana just to get there.
Yeah.
So it's not crazy strong, because at the very earliest you're getting this likely on turn 4, unless you're already choosing mana cost before then. So it's not like you're just going full corruption level 4 in Zoo on turn 1, and then you just play all sorts of free cards.
Exactly.
And I guess 5 is the last one. Yes, it is. Inevitable Doom. 5 mana. Reduce the cost of all cards in your hand and deck by 2. At the start of each turn, you get 1 damage for each card in your hand. So this just wants you to play all the cards very fast.
Correct. And we should mention this, maybe it's not obvious, the effects from all the previous corruption stacks. So once you've played all of them,
yes,
you have 30 seconds per turn. You still get the reduction, but you still discard a card every turn, and you take the ticking damage.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a look at this. At the start of each turn, reduce the cost of... Oh, God, remind me, start of turn effects trigger before or after the draw?
Before draw, I think.
Because otherwise this gets very problematic, because once you've played out your hand, you would never get new cards unless you tap, which would be a bit problematic. If it triggers before, then you have 1 card to play with every turn, and presumably you'll play out your entire hand, so the damage is going to be unimportant, the discarding is going to be unimportant, and at the end of the day you're just top decking, but your cards are too cheaper. And you have very little time, but you're only dealing with 1 or 2 cards every turn, so the time doesn't matter as much. Obviously, one nitpick is that this is literally unplayable in mobile. But,
yeah, but
so is most of Hearthstone, so...
Exactly. Like, the collection is unplayable in mobile. It's not
yeah.
Yeah, you go all this, all of your corruption sticks up, and the thing about this is because it's mechanic based, you can stop at any moment too. That's the other thing. You could decide to just not play your tier 4 corruption ever, and just have the card draw from the beginning with the slider down. So or you can go higher and higher. It's exactly the same how it works around. Now this is flavor wise, gameplay wise, in that relation is definitely a 10 out of 10. To toot my own horn here, balance wise, I have no idea because it's so far out there. And of course, it's not technically Shadowlands, but it's the remnants of Shadowlands, and there's that one theory out there. So, what do you think overall? How do you like the construction?
Yeah, I was about to say, of course, not perfectly in theme, but in general, I like the flavor of this a lot. I have a very hard time figuring out how to judge this. in terms of balance.
Oh,
I
that's one,
think
yeah.
I think the card draw stuff is actually relatively strong, since it's card draw with an upside of getting more card draw cards. I think the turn time downside is almost negligible if you are basically, because if you play this enough, and assuming you play on PC with a good connection, then I think you can make a turn in 30 seconds. And especially because the other stuff motivates you to get rid of most of your hand anyways, so you're just top decking every turn, and then you just play the card or not.
I like what I also thought is I like that this scales well, just like the same as the raw mechanic, into the competitive scene of the game. Because of course in World of Warcraft your level is extremely strong, and you have corruptions that are incredibly strong and can one shot stuff sometimes, but you have the huge downsides when you get to inevitable doom. You have all sorts of mechanics that pop up randomly from your corruption that you have to dodge and that can kill you. And but it's a very like dynamic mechanic in the higher scene. And in Hearthstone, you think about the professional tournaments, those guys oftentimes take up a full tournament to just think and calculate and try to make the best plays possible. So how far would a professional player in a tournament go with up the corruption ladder? How much power does he want? How much does he sacrifice for it, right?
I mean,
I like this.
Yeah, I guess this in theory is very strong in Token, I suppose. Not Token, Zoo. I'm trying to say, getting my aggro decks mixed up. In the Zoo Warlock, because you get relatively cheap cards. You want to play a lot of cards. You get the draw, because you will run out of cards usually. Actually, you don't run out of cards that much, but you could run out of cards, and you don't have to build in any card draw besides your hero power if you have this, assuming you draw it. But again, it seems rather strong because you can mitigate the downside somewhat effectively, but it also takes a while to get there, which is a downside that's not explicitly on the card, but definitely, if you think about it, comes up. So, I mean, balance-wise, I think we'd have to talk to people with a lot more experience playing Hearthstone than we have, especially on the higher levels.
It's very complex, but I'm sure we have some great players in our Discord and that watch our videos. They're going to let us know some of their opinions. Like Pimp Carp Aurora, I know they're going to chime into this, and they're going to say. So I'm very much to those opinions.
Though I would say that even those guys will probably only have a vague idea of how strong or weak this is, because we've before seen high-level players react to new cards from expansions and completely miss the point one way or the other. And most of those cards were comparatively simpler than this 5-step process.
Yeah, it's one of the complex mechanics.
So
but I think it will be interesting.
This is one thing that I don't think you will ever balance just on paper. I think I think this is something that you very much balance through playtesting. That's like the best way to balance this, because then you'll just see how it plays, and you'll put different players in there. Some who are gonna use it more aggressively. Some are going to use it more conservatively. You're going to try it in aggro decks, you're going to try it in mid-range decks, you're going to try it in control decks, and you're just going to see how it goes.
Basically,
yeah, so I think we talked about this for quite a while.
Throwing it out there. Yep. More. The next one is a bit more of an easy one. Calm before the storm, so to speak.
2 mana, 3/4 beast, neutral. Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to your hero for every turn this has been alive.
Now, just quickly, flavor-wise, Loret's, of course, one of the most common mobs in Torghast. What I've seen in play, there's like a bunch of them. They can also explode and deal AoE damage, deal damage to you or something. So I thought this was kind of a fitting. And this is technically Torghast or like more related. So there's your variety right there.
First thing that comes to mind is, I suppose first thing that comes to mind was Zombie Chow. I don't know why exactly, but I guess I know why. It's 1/1 overstated, and although 1-drops these days are 1/3s oftentimes, or 2/2s, not 1/2s. But negative death rattle, 1/1 overstated. a regular card, like not a legendary or anything crazy like that.
I was just thinking Flame as a comparison when I'm.
Yeah, that's also a good one. Yeah, for sure. And this has the downside delayed as opposed to Flame Him. And I think the downside is more real than with Chow, for example, where oftentimes your opponent won't even get the full effect off of it. This is interesting because, of course, for your opponent, it's also like, when do I remove it? If you remove it instantly, you're just going to take 1 damage. It's like, whatever, right? But the longer it stays on board, the more liability it becomes to you as a player, and at the same time, it is also done more for you at that point.
Exactly. So at some point you want to get rid of it yourself also to kind of avoid the death rattle damage that you take.
Yeah. I guess obvious class to play this in would be Hunter because of Beast Synergy.
So Warlock, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see Zoo play this. It doesn't really have any direct synergy with it, but it just likes overstated minions.
Yeah.
I guess it does have synergy because Warlock has self-damaging synergies.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because I think this explores a bit of a play case that we haven't really seen in that way, where the downside grows over time, or generally the downside changes over time, so to a point where it becomes a constant evaluation. I think this is going to be a decently strong card in aggro. I think it's going to die sooner rather than later, and it's generally going to not be so bad that it's not worth playing. But because it has a significant downside, it is still relevant that it has a downside in, say, mirror matches or against other more aggressive leaning or even tempo decks where you can die to damage as an aggro deck somewhat easily because you're going very low on health already because you're taking aggressive trades with your face or you're playing self-damaging cards. From what I can tell, this is more or less in line with other stuff. You're gonna expect to, on average, take, I want to say, 2 or 3 points of damage, maybe 4. So
exactly. So sometimes could be better than Flame Him, and sometimes it will be worse than Flame Him. And it being a 2-drop makes it all a little more balanced out, and also gives your opponent to think about, because it's like kind of two-sided, right? Your opponent might decide to, big overstat minion on 2. Should I remove it, or should I just specifically not remove it, just leave it alive? It's kind of a gamble for them too. And
yeah, I brought the point up earlier. The other thing is, of course, I just want to bring it up. It's not going to be a major part of this, I think, but self-silence, of course. It's possible. I mean, generally, in an aggro deck, you might run a silence to remove a taunt at one point or other, but you would only really silence this if it goes out of hand. You're not going to silence this to avoid a point or 2 of damage.
Might have been an inclusion silence priest, but probably not, because
it's too weak in silence priest because it directly competes with Ancient Watcher. Granted, this doesn't have to be silenced to work, and in priest you can also out-heal the damage again. But I see this more in something like Zoo or other aggro decks, maybe like a mid-range hunter, and then you run an owl and just to circumvent that taunt to get that face damage in. And maybe if this thing gets too big, you silence that as well.
I feel like this is by far the most realistic part that I've made. So if Blizzard is going to snatch one of my cards again, like I did last time, and just completely copy it in every way, look for it to be this, right? I'm calling it right now. Next expansion, I'm going to see something that's 98% this card, and then Blizzard's going to sell it as like they did last time when I made a card, which was realistic.
Yeah,
took it.
I'm gonna say this. This could very well be a Warlock card. It thematically feels more like a Warlock card than anything else, but it works as a neutral card as well.
Exactly. By the way, if you don't believe that Blizzard copied my card, DM me on Discord. I will prove it to you. That's what I have to say. Let's go into the last one. Had some fun with that one.
Oh my! Arthas, the Eternal King. 10 mana Paladin hero, 5 armor. That's relatively normal. Battle cry. Destroy all minions. For each minion destroyed, summon an Eternal Servant. So now you might ask, what is an Eternal Servant? And I guess that's on the next page.
That's the next page. It's not as exciting as you might think. It's just
it's a ghoul.
It's a ghoul.
Like pre-existing 2/2 ghouls, except that this one is a Death Knight card.
It's a Death Knight card, and this is sort of what the theme is going to be in the Shadowlands expansion. Paladins turning into Death Knights. That's going to be an archetype. The evil paladin thing. Like, I mean, lore-wise, I don't like the whole idea of paladins, like being able to do shadow damage and all that stuff. But in Hearthstone, it might as well be an archetype, and Earth is just the perfect catalyst for it. So the paladin will be able to turn to the dark side, give up the light, and basically become a Death Knight.
One small nitpick for sure that I want to start with is, I think the hero card should probably just say a 2/2 Eternal Servant, because generally speaking, for tokens, most cards list the stats. That's just...
Yeah.
That's not really...
I don't do it anytime, so then the next card reveals it. I also didn't do that with the Echoes of Nyalotha, when I always said the next tier corruption.
I mean, yeah, but...
The next...
In that case, yeah, you could have probably had the name, but you can't really... You're not going to have the full effect on it. So this is a board wipe for 10 mana. There's hero power with this, right?
Yes.
I forgot. I was like, oh, so this is kind of like Reno, but he summons 2/2, so he's better. But I forgot. This matters a lot. There's hero powers. There's 3 of them.
That's real.
2 mana destroy a minion, 2 mana summon an Eternal Servant, and 2 mana do nothing. Oh. Swaps each turn. I suppose randomly, or do they swap in order?
I'm not sure. Depends on depends on how strong either one is. I have made up my mind on that. If it's a swap each turn, I'm assuming it's random, like not before.
Yeah. So 2 mana summon a 2/2 is definitely in line with and arguably on the weaker side of alternate hero powers. If you think about Upgrade Paladin hero power summons 2 1/1s, one of the Boom hero power summons 3 1/1s, that also implicitly, because of how Boom works, have Rush, which makes them all very strong. So I think... Oh yeah, right. Uther of the Ebon Blade summons 2/2s with an upside. So arguably for hero powers, Raise the Dead is weak. But it's fine. It's also not underpowered, it's just on the weaker side. Destroy a minion, very strong. Destroy a minion for 2 mana, that's definitely, I mean, generally we look at this as like a 5 mana sort of an effect, if it's unconditional, with Assassinate kind of being the baseline. Granted, most destroy effects are a little bit cheaper. It's ended up being usually 4 mana for like a conditional destroy that's very easy to meet, for example. So yeah. Or like 5 mana for a 3/4 with a very easy to meet destroy condition. So that's very strong. But since you can't control when you have it, you might not have a use for it the turn you get it. And of course you got that one where it just does nothing.
The dud to weaken the thing down. Because there's an upside to, ultimate power corruption.
Yeah, I mean, there would be an interesting point if, just as an example, if the Inner Conflict, instead of doing nothing, just swapped the hero power, so you could effectively pay 4 mana to get one of your other hero powers. Maybe. That being said, again, the comparison to Reno, I guess, stands. A couple of differences. Death Rattle's trigger on this one, you get minions out of it, and in terms of the battle cry. In terms of the hero power, probably on average better than Reno hero power, except for when you get the Inner Conflict, in which case that sucks. You're never going to have Inner Conflict 2 turns back to back, because it does actually, presumably like Boom, always guaranteed to swap. You just can't control 2. Which also means that every turn you had a good hero power, there's a 50-50 chance that you're getting a shit one after that.
Note, the Conflict hero power is still an active 2 mana hero power, and you can very much push the button. For enough, but you could press it. You could do it when you have it.
Right. I guess I would have found it interesting. I mean, we didn't really see... Of course, we both only had 5 cards, but with the Eternal Servants having the Death Knight sort of a look to them, would have been interesting to see some sort of interaction maybe with the Paladin class and the Death Knight cards from the Lich King card and Arthas. But I get how you can't cram all of that in one card, and you had other cards to show off.
Might have to make, we're definitely going to have to make more topic more often because it's a lot of fun, and we'd have to find like some themes for it.
Yeah, and I would say next time when we come up with this, maybe not be like, oh yeah, let's do a podcast with custom cards tomorrow, because that's...
Yeah, let's do it next week. Though I think we had pretty good cards. I think the card quality was decent. Actually, I think it was pretty nice.
I mean, yours definitely were very complex considering the small prep time that we had. Mine were on the simpler side. I was a little bit, I'm gonna go to. We talked about the individual cards. I'm gonna go back to full screen. I personally, when I designed mine, I was a little bit disappointed when I ended up with mostly relatively basic designs. But given the time, I think it was fine. And also just, I liked that I had a consistent theme going for like how this was beyond the actual just the Shadowlands theme. You went just generally anything that can somehow relate to Shadowlands, but you therefore instead went more in depth with the actual individual cards.
I like to go crazy and be inventive with the when we do this topic with the custom cards. I like to do some extravagant stuff.
Inventative.
Boy.
Yeah, I think inventive would have been enough.
That's up to it. So that's what I do. We're gonna post these in our Discord server whenever the podcast is out, which is of course now, but at the point of recording it's not. We're going to allow the people in there to drop some opinions on there, because we have a custom Hearthstone cards channel that's dedicated to that, and people like to use it to post their custom Hearthstone opinions. And we have some fully qualified opinions and some less qualified ones on what they think about it, lore-wise and story-wise, and maybe some balance ideas. But overall, I gotta say, I like this topic, and we gotta do this a lot more often. This is a lot of fun, and I like custom.
The funny thing is that if we were to make more Shadowlands themed cards, then we would more and more flesh out the that one warrior card you made, which is Explore Angora but Shadowlands.
Yeah, exactly. Because you get, I was thinking about it, like you could make an entire expansion by itself. I was thinking we could at some point make like an entire set class for a custom class by ourselves, something like DK or something, or Monk, whatever they might add at some point. I
was actually thinking we could also do something like basically just motivate the community to make more Shadowlands themed cards, to the point where at the end of the day in our Discord server maybe have like a compiled list of almost an expansion worth of cards or something. That being said, I don't think we necessarily right now want to go for anything like a coordinated effort to specifically fill out all the slots where it's like this many legends per class, blah blah blah.
I know. But I was thinking generally that's something we could definitely do, like you said, if the interest is there, we can run an initiative in our server where we allow people to submit their cards, and then we can actually review them on the podcast.
I was about to say, how about this? If you have ideas for Shadowlands themed cards, post them in our Discord server. Optimally, like we did it, find a site that does custom Hearthstone cards or use Photoshop or whatever, and actually make images for them. And then if we get enough of them submitted, we can talk about it on the podcast next week or maybe the week after that.
That's a good idea. We could do that if interest is there. I know we have some people who just like making cards, so why not give some official opinion of those in the podcast? That seems like a good idea. I'm going to post it in the Discord at some point also still. But yeah, that's it for this week. Let us know what you think about these for now. And then we have the song of the week, and then we're going to be out. So JJ, what's the song of this week?
Well, I figured I was going to go... And, I'm evidently good with theming, so I wanted to stay on theme. So I figured out I was going to pick a song that I both like and that maybe fits with Shadowlands. Which, I mean, okay, it fits more in like a punny way than in an actual literal way, but my song of this week is Soul Man by the Blues Brothers. So don't worry, 'cause I'm coming. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man.
I don't think it's relating to. Okay, you know what it's related to.
No, it's about the music genre, Soul. I know. I figured I want to have something that relates to like shadows, afterlife, souls, something like that. And I was like, this works.
It's a good enough song. I guess if you want to reach far enough, you can make anything relate to Shadowlands. It's a good song. Very old school. Not very old school, Dave. We have very old school songs. My song of the week is "Princes of the Universe" by Queen.
Here we are, born to be kings. We're the princes of the universe. Here we belong, fighting to survive in a war with the darkest power.
So we're full on like decades ago.
I actually had a thought recently so quick aside, we share songs with each other through a shared YouTube playlist, and you put Prince of the Universe in there recently. And the moment I saw that you had put it in there, I was like, have I not ever used it as a song of the week? I feel like I might have used it as a song of the week not too far in the past.
Have you?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched every single podcast and double checked, but I want to say I might have used that before we did music clips, but like a while after we started using Facecam, which is still very vague. That still covers probably like over half a year worth of podcasts, if not more. But
yeah.
Well, yeah.
By the way, you should have heard some songs if they did get copyright struck.
Yes. Princes of the Universe, of course, famously the theme of the Highlander TV show.
Famously, the music show. Put it to me. That's how it's famous.
And side note, the theme for the Highlander movie, at least for the first one, I'm not sure about the other ones, was "Who Wants to Live Forever," also by Queen.
Still famous. I can't believe it. I've never heard of that show. Is it a show about the movie or a movie about the show, or are they not related?
The movie came first. The show is in the same set in the same universe as the movies. Well, besides the second one.
Assuming the movie was popular.
So yeah, the movie came first, and then came the show based on the movie. Basically, it's not the same character, but it's a related character with the same immortality thing. I mean, the premise of Highlander is they're immortal, except they can be beheaded, and then basically everyone's goal is to behead all of them, because there can only be one.
I guess, yeah. I know that's what the Hearthstone Highlander archetype name comes from. So that's
and so they made the first movie, and then at some point they made TV show. I don't know exactly how the timeline adds up, and then I know the second movie is completely unrelated to anything else in that series. Basically, I mean, it's related to the first movie, but they made a third movie it's basically an alternate sequel to the first one. I guess the second one wasn't received well because it was really weird. And then I think the fourth and fifth movie actually have the protagonist from the TV show as the protagonist of those movies, rather than the protagonist from the original movies.
That all of that told me absolutely nothing. I whenever like shows and movies come up, I just something forces me to not understand, to not just like, okay, I'm just gonna wait until I stop. I have no idea about that stuff, but I'm sure someone who knows what you just meant. Thank you for watching this video. Drop a like if you did enjoy it. Let us know what you think about those cards. Once again, I posted in Discord. We're doing this community custom Hearthstone card creation extravaganza. We'll review them in the podcast whenever we have some degree of cards. And the first theme is going to be Shadowlands. Maybe we can even rank them and be like, yo, this is number one, and the winner gets something. Let's see about that. We'll see what we can do.
We'll see. It all also depends a little bit on how many cards are submitted.
Yeah, exactly. And how many per person allowed. But we'll think about that, and more details will be in the Discord if you're interested in that. Show up there, link in the description. Drop a like, drop to TrashcanTV. If you're not subbed yet, do it. because you don't want to miss what's coming up. We'll be back tomorrow with a Hearthstone video, and we'll be back on Monday with a Hearthstone video. It's what we do. We haven't figured it out. There's some gameplay coming up. Gonna have a lot of interesting content, a lot of cool challenges coming up. So hopefully see you soon and already tomorrow in the next video. And until then, JJ.
That's it.
That's it.